So, Mr. Holland, in your manifesto, you have quite a heavy emphasis on sports throughout. Do you think that's really relevant to Heythrop as a whole, or do you think perhaps you're limiting your audience a little bit?
I would have said sports is one of three main, rather than a whole. It actually comes towards the end. It is something on its own which needs improving. I really feel strongly that at the moment the lack of a female team is kind of an area that needs addressing. Obviously that actually requires input from the students themselves. It's not something I can do, but I do have the experience with Bucks, with different facilities near us to get that going.
I'm glad you brought that up actually, because you mentioned in your manifesto that the most obvious candidate for a female sports team is netball. I mean, I know that there's actually a fledgling hockey team that's trying to get off the ground.
I actually tried to help that get off the ground this year. The problem was that the campus services wouldn't let the hockey team use the AstroTurf because they said it would make too much noise. By the time the certain individual wanted to set this up, I did find out prices for them for how much a pitch would cost at Barnum Sports Centre, and use my contacts there where we get a 50% discount. But unfortunately, by the time I think this individual had the idea, the leagues were already formed. I checked would it be too late to enter, and it was. And that idea kind of fell by the wayside this year. It's something which really needs to be implemented from the start.
That's what the individual in charge of the hockey team has been saying to me as well. I mean, the other things that were mentioned is that obviously you've said quite a lot about your management of the football team, particularly their budget, and how you want to use that as a blueprint for other societies. But I mean, you don't get all of your money from the union. You get sources from other investors who don't seem to be as willing to invest in other societies. I know the Drama Society tries to get funding from Mr. Grundy.
I remember that because I actually suggested to you in the heads meeting, the only heads meeting, head of societies this year. I wasn't aware that he would say no. I just said, as friendly advice, I thought I'd found him so accommodating.
Well, if he's perhaps not as accommodating to other societies other than the football team, is it really generous for you to say that other societies can use your format as a blueprint? Yeah.
I think I was talking in two regards on that. One is we have for 2 years been one of the biggest societies in self-fundraising. We do that in a couple of different ways. The Six-a-Side League, that starts on Thursday nights, brings in about £100 per term. And we also, this year, have an agreement with Brentford FC that we get 50, when we go to their games, we get 50%. So it's looking for things which we can do ourselves. But back to the point with Martin Grundy, I think it's about how you sell the need. At the time, when I went to him, I was going from a football team point of view, and I sold the need very well. I even said, this is something we're willing to pay for ourselves. We've discussed a £50 membership fee and agreed it in a meeting with the football team, but first, is this something the college would be willing to meet? If it's not, we'll pay for it ourselves. But I explained the reasons why it would benefit the team, the students, future students, the team for years to come. Okay. And so that kind of selling point, I would then, if I was in the role of VP, be able to take as not just the football team, but societies as a whole.
Okay, I see. The football team does, in and of itself, regardless of the fundraising it does for itself, it does also receive quite a large portion of the union budget. It's an expensive society.
Absolutely.
Given that this existing sports team is very expensive, can we really afford to set up another sports team exclusively for women if the existing sports team takes up such a large portion of the budget?
I think similar to how football team works and the cricket team, that money comes upstairs ring-fenced that doesn't hurt other societies. I think that's very important. I would push for the Netball Society to get a similar money that doesn't affect other societies. Also, if it was netball in particular, netball is surprisingly cheap. It is about a fifth of the price for a pitch for a netball than football. So it actually wouldn't cost anywhere near the amount that
The football team.
the football team does.
Oh, in that case, if the football team is an all-male team, why should the all-female team be relegated to the cheapie team? You know, if the male team, all-male team is getting all this money spent on it, why are we going for the budget option? With
it's definitely not a budget option. It's just the fact of how much the costs which you can't help as a football, netball, cricket are pitch costs and referee costs. You can't help. They're a set price across councils, across facilities. You will generally pay in certain regions. Netball is cheaper. It's not a cop-out.
Well, if we've got two expensive sports, the male team's got a cricket team and a football team, why do we need both of those taking up a large portion of the union budget? Why can we axe one of those and maybe go for a slightly more, put slightly more money into maybe the hockey team that is garnered a lot of interest?
The hockey team did garner a lot of interest, but then it didn't do anything with that interest, and it needs to. So take the example of the cricket team. When they started, there were Peter Mackay, a very driven individual, took over, and essentially they ran it themselves. They said, "Look, we actually want to do this. We're willing to do this ourselves." There was a lot of the money originally came out of Peter's pocket that he never claimed or asked back, so they could get going. And it got to a stage that, "Look, we're doing something for the college. Give us some money so that we can do this properly." But it's all well and good saying we want to do something. I really was supportive of the hockey team this year. As Ellie Rimmer will agree, I was really, really trying to help them get going. But if you don't have a first training session, I kept trying to say, "Oh, they've got this date free at this place, and I'm sure I can get Martin Grundy to pay for it." And they said, "Oh, maybe another week." If there's no real pushing through from the student body.
Well, moving away from sports slightly, but staying with events. I mean, that does seem to be the main thrust of your manifesto. You talked about ring fencing budgets.
Potential, yeah.
Why do you think that events should get a ring fenced budget when, say, careers shouldn't? Aren't careers more important?
Careers are very important, and I have mentioned, if you'd like to come back to careers in a minute, I'd be happy to. The event, what I actually just said was there was a possibility to discuss with upstairs a ring-fenced HSU bar events budget. So currently, as we all know, a big part of the VP role is facilities, and the huge facility change in the last year was the HSU bar. It's been horribly underutilised, poorly managed, poorly advertised. So a potential idea could be that we talk with upstairs, because they have spent a lot of money on this, but then from both sides it hasn't really gone anywhere this year. So it was just an idea that we could discuss a separate budget for things that we just do for our students in the HSU bar. We could move over. I mean, the comedy nights last year were really successful and have fortunately been poorly advertised this year. So revitalise those, but not just that. Pub quizzes, society socials, magicians, upcoming musicians. We need to make that space, which should be the kind of the locus of where all kind of student engagement, non-academic, takes place. And at the minute, it's horribly underutilised.
Okay, well, obviously we want to increase the amount of events that are going on, but going on to careers, I mean, you mentioned a career day in your manifesto. Are you feeling that? I think that was about what you said, really.
Well, yeah, it was a first draft, and actually yesterday I had a meeting with Sam English about careers alone. It's very interesting to know that in the background, and actually very well done to Sam English, and no one knows this yet, it just so happens that I asked the question. He's actually this year been approaching large companies, 19 large companies in London, 16 of which are interested in different stages of negotiations of paid apprenticeships just for Heythrop students every year. So if, for example, if they give out 100 paid internships every year, we're trying to get to a point where 2 or 3, hopefully more, are guaranteed they're going to give to Heythrop students. That is something which in my final draft of the manifesto, I will say, whoever comes into VP, will be at a stage, thanks to Sam English, to push this through, because a lot of this stuff is in the final stages. So not only would I want to come in and push this through, I would work with the President to take this, again, a blueprint for how to do careers, and take the basis and then take it beyond that 19 across London, because we've already got that basis.
Okay, so Sam English has established this this basis for you.
And very well done.
I would assume that any incoming VP,
any incoming VP
would naturally
so either whoever gets VP will be in a fantastic position thanks to Sam English. So he has done a lot of the groundwork in careers in that regard. In terms of events, it's fallen away this year.
Okay. So
that would be my
would a fair assessment be to say that you think that a lot of the important work for careers has already been done, and therefore the focus is more on events?
No,
if not done, sent on its way, as it were.
I'd say that a lot of the groundwork for events for careers, has been done. Another thing which I really want to see is currently, and again, this is going to go in my final manifesto, Kim Burke only actually works 1 day a week on careers, and the careers advisor currently, we have a new one since the Lion careers review, does half a day a week. I would strongly push with the President on the various boards we sit on that half day a week becomes up 2 days a week. We need, if not more, if not full time, because currently careers is a job that is done by upstairs but it's done poorly. So I can understand why Sam has come on board, and we had a long chat about, when this gets to a good stage, should we hand it over to upstairs? And we say, well, actually, they haven't got anyone really full-time at the minute. So I can see why Sam has gone on his own, and I think for next year, if there's no one that comes in more full-time, the Heythrop SU Career Service, I would keep that, what Sam has done, and build on it.
Okay. So you're going to build on what's already there.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on a little bit. I'm going to quote directly from your first draft, which I'm afraid is all we have access to. But you say the Heythrop Students Union is in a fantastic position to maximise the facilities available to it, and I believe I can be an important part of this next year, as well as the current structure does not allow for this as efficiently as it could. I'm passionate about providing the student population with a well-organised SU that helps you to make the most of your facilities in your time at Heythrop. I mean, in your opinion, where's the current SU fallen short? What do you think you can do to change it? Are you planning a reorganisation?
In its infrastructure, I think first things first, whoever gets president and vice president, from previous years, your skill sets will often dictate what areas you look after. But I think this year's, and when I was in the student union last year, hasn't been very clear in terms of leadership structure and who's looking after what. And that has definitely caused a lot of issues, from what I know, internal politics with the SU this year, with events, as an example. So I've talked to Sam English and Alex Hackett, so for those that don't know, current VP, last VP. I've also spoken to Dermot and Ashley Doolan, similar with presidents. I've spoken to Alex Ewing and Millie, this year's events team, Caitlin, and obviously myself for last year's events team. Everyone strongly endorses the VP role becoming head of events. Sam English is even willing to be quoted on that, because he has found this year that a lot of the success or failure of an event is placed on him and his role, even though he hasn't been directly involved a lot of the time. The workload is too much for a non-SAB, so I think it's making it clear, as a student union at the start of the year, for one, student union should have an objective as a student union, and then within it, VP, if I was VP, I would manage the events team, student activities, possibly welfare. It depends on who you're with as a president, but I think there needs to be a clear at the start of the year, like, this is what I'm going to look after, this is what you're going to look after, we'll do what we can together, but let's make this a well-oiled team.
You just think that the SAB role should be more active in the particular areas of the union, so welfare and
student activities and events.
Welfare, student activities, those three, sort of directly look after those.
Those are what I would, if it was me, if I get voted in, that's where I would see. I think at the minute a very good example is that in choosing, in deciding on events this year, there's been a lot of internal politics and kind of backstabbing and so on.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving on a little bit. You mentioned in your manifesto about the lift, saying the maintenance for that has taken too long, and you seem to suggest that we're no longer going to maintain the lift.
Sorry?
The wording is a little unclear.
Okay, I do apologise. I mean is over the summer there's been a lot of work done on the lift, which has put it out of action for extended periods of time, which is not acceptable for disabled students. It's something that over the summer I'll really push that that we get someone to come in and have a look at the lift, and if they think, actually this is on its last legs, that we really push college to invest in a new lift, because for disabled students it is not on coming in and not being able to get to their lectures because the lift isn't working. So we need to, if not a new lift, then heavy maintenance work over the summer to get it up to a standard that is fit for purpose.
Oh yeah, well, thanks for clarifying that. Another final thing really is that you didn't run for the union this year, although you were on it last year. Why is that?
Well, for one, I felt that my experience from doing it last year, it's one of the most hands-on and demanding roles doing the events. Actually, to the point that I think it needs to be rolled into a paid job, because the workload is unbelievable. So the experience I got from that second year was vast. This year, you might think, oh, you haven't been involved, but I've been at a lot of the events where I've actually had to help out setting up the PA system, doing a bit of advertising for them.
If you think the workload for a non-SAB position is so massive, do you think you can really cope with the workload of a full SAB position?
Absolutely. I think my experience from the events, I already have the contacts and so on. So I see it more as a decision making and mentoring, and definitely taking on some of the workload for them. It's not that I'm taking on everything. It's making it a better structure than it is, and I've already achieved a lot.
Okay,
I've achieved a lot as a non-SAB with less time. So if I'm full SAB, what can I achieve with more time?
Okay. Well, thank you very much.